Johnson. Give us an update of how things are going over there, and join us if you would. Jared?
Yeah, so I noticed the annual report wasn't in the packet, so I just printed out a couple pages of it, just.
No, I think it's.
So first off, let me apologize, my seasonal allergies might cause a little extra coughing here, but my name is Mary Devine Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director for Visit Brainerd. And Visit Brainerd is the Visitors Bureau for the cities of Brainerd and Baxter, and the official destination marketing organization for the cities as well. So we were established in 1995, and we're funded primarily by a local lodging tax that's paid to the short-term lodging properties in the city limits of Brainerd and Baxter specifically. So there's a 3% tax that goes on a bill when somebody stays in a hotel, and 95% of that comes to our organization to promote the communities as a destination and to lift economic development through tourism. So about once a year and a half, I try to come and make a presentation and remind you that we're here and the things that we're doing. You're welcome anytime to call, come downtown, which is where our office is. For 25 years, we were located in an office location, primarily in the basement of the bank. And I started in 2017, and people would find me in the basement of the bank and look for maps and brochures and ask for help. They've already driven past the regional welcome center, and they're here in town picking up groceries and doing different things, and they wanted someone to talk to. So in 2020, we moved above ground. We spent about a year trying to decide where to go, since we represented both cities. And we decided to move into downtown Brainerd because you have people that come there as a stop and things to do. And quite frankly, the rent was cheap, and we didn't know exactly if this was gonna work. And so we spent a couple of years trying to prove the model, and it works. And so now every summer, we welcome about 3,000 visitors through our door. We are open year-round with a gift store as well, and we have, probably double that come in and make purchases and buy Brainerd, Baxter, and Minnesota branded items. So come on in if you're looking for a Baxter t-shirt or a hat or a magnet. We've got those things there too. But our primary mission is to spend that money advertising. And so it's about a $500,000 budget that comes through Visit Brainerd. And we spend $260,000 to $280,000 directly on advertising. So since I took over, we've been very intentional about making sure that more than 50% of those tax dollars are spent on programming and going right back out the door. And so we do a multimedia campaign, radio, television, digital, print, and a lot of other types of promotions, primarily in the Twin Cities. That's a large market for us. About 60% of the dollars are spent there. But then we will target with digital advertising in other markets, Wisconsin Dells, in Iowa, in Omaha. And then with digital advertising, you can do a lot of very specific niche marketing depending on the interest. So biking, hiking, family vacations, fishing, golfing, and a lot of things like that. The other thing that I'd like to point out is in the last 7 years, we've been very intentional about spreading out the advertising budget. For many years, we were spending the money promoting summer destination. And we weren't seeing the needle move on the lodging tax revenue. So since then, we've been flattening out and advertising year-round, and we've seen our greatest lift in the shoulder seasons. And so I think that's been a good move for us strategically and bringing in more heads and beds. The other thing that I would like to call attention to is that we've been trying to partner with organizations and associations that can help fill the hotels when there aren't people coming for tourism. And so working with sports groups, hockey association, baseball, basketball, hoping when they have tournaments, get them to stay here instead of out of town at one of the resorts. And it's been a slow shift, but this June is a good example. The Baxter Brainerd Baseball Association now is filling our hotels starting the first weekend in June instead of the later part of June. And so those have been very strategic moves that we've made, and it's been very beneficial, and we've seen an increase in the lodging tax revenue. We're up about 6 or 7% in the last year, where historically we've been at about 3 or 4%. So I think we're making good strides. We're trying to be very good stewards of the tax dollars. The reason you have a visitors bureau at all is because it is codified in state statute 469190, which is under economic development, that if you are a local government unit that is collecting a tax, you must have a visitors bureau. So that is who we are. That's why we exist. I'm happy to open it up to any questions that people might have. Couple of goals for the future. I would love to work more closely with the city of Baxter on your needs and your goals. What do you want pictures of? What should we be promoting? Because I'm not sure if you've heard of this theory or not before, but there is a study called the halo effect of tourism. And the halo effect is, it was a study done by a national organization, and they found that when somebody visits an area, once they visit a destination, their likelihood of being willing to relocate, to retire, to start a business, or to move a business increases 70%. So our job as the storytellers of the brand and what's happening in our communities, we think is pretty important part of economic development, and probably the most fun way. We get to tell all the fun stories about things that people can do here. So I do think one of the things that would be beneficial long-term would be to look at a long-range tourism development plan between the cities of Brainerd and Baxter. We are the joint community, if you will, that is the economic center of the Brainerd Lakes area. And the experiences and the amenities that we provide here are very different than what are out in the lakes area. We're not necessarily cute kids jumping off docks. We're public beaches and trails and food and restaurants and arts and culture and a lot of other really wonderful things, right? But you can stay here in one of 10 properties that are, some of them are locally owned, some of them are national chains, and do all of the things in the county. So we have no problem promoting events and attractions and businesses in the county, but we need to tell a better story about Brainerd and Baxter. And that's what we've been working on for the last few years. So that's a lot in a very little amount of time, but I want to be respectful that you're just starting your evening. So are there any questions or comments for me? Concerns?
Yes, sir, I have some. Thanks for coming tonight and that information. Can you talk to I guess a marketing strategy for the city of Baxter? I assume there's one, you have one?
Well, I guess, I don't know what you're asking specifically. You know, I don't know that there is a specific marketing strategy for the city of Baxter. The brand is Brainerd. The reason the brand is Brainerd, if you can just humor me for a minute here, Jeff, is there are literally millions, hundreds of millions of search impressions for Brainerd compared to thousands for Baxter. And so even the national brands of the hotels, their marketing experts say, stick with Brainerd. So Holiday Inn will do a co-branding of Brainerd Baxter. Right. We discuss every year, the board of directors, which is a volunteer board, which 5 representatives of hoteliers and 3 business owners, should we change the name? And we keep landing on that branding strategy. What we do though is be very intentional about, in as often as we can, say Brainerd Baxter, Baxter Brainerd. We do an SEO strategy that's specific to lodging in Baxter, water parks in Baxter, parks in Baxter. So our digital strategy and our keyword search is all both Brainerd and Baxter. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I don't know if it satisfies my question, but it answers it. Can you speak to more of the, instead of the advertise, so it looks like you, I think in 2022 was, has your staffing changed over the last 3-4-ish years?
So in 2020, when we opened the location in downtown, we went from 1.5 to have had seasonal help in the summers since we've had the gift store. Just recently, we lost that second full-time person and another quarter-time person, so now we're back down to 1 1/4. And we'll plan to just staff again seasonally and be in charge of the operations that way.
Loss due to funding?
No, loss due to her pursuing a different opportunity.
Could be retired.
Could be rehired. You know, adding the gift store and information center took us very much from a quasi-agency to adding another business. And so, since then, we've been reevaluating our operations and looking at what makes sense to make sure that we don't, you know, get too operational heavy. But as I said before, we're 55% programming, 45% operations, even with that staffing. Is there something more specific that you?
Well, what about on the, instead of the advertising, more the convention bureau side? And can you speak to any of the specific events that Visit Brainerd has put together, managed, had oversight on, that has put, to use your phrase, heads in bed, right?
Sure.
Can you?
Yeah, no, I can't. And the reason being is because we're such a small operation, we tend to avoid trying to start events and manage events because events are incredibly labor intensive, which is why we focused on partnering with other organizations that are running events.
Can you speak to what you mean by partnering?
Sure. So, for example, the Brainerd JC's Ice Fishing Extravaganza, we sponsor that event in-kind advertising. So we will do advertising in markets that they're not going into on a Midwest regional level, if you will, for trade. So we would already be spending those dollars on advertising, and we're picking it in those markets and trying to bring people here for that. We also help support by, with non-tax revenue, we run shuttle buses from the hotels to the event to try and get people there safely, to take pressure off of the event. We do a similar thing with Lakes Jam. We started trying to work on doing more for corporate events and bringing groups into the market to help put heads in beds right before COVID. And we've backed off because the meeting space has gotten just a little bit, it's different in terms of what people are wanting to do and how long they're wanting to stay. And we don't quite have the infrastructure to have really large groups at the in-town facilities, which is something that we might want to talk about strategically long term. We try to support, like I said, the youth sports associations, and again, through the in-kind sponsorship for advertising. And if they're bringing people in, we see a reciprocal relationship there. But we're always open to suggestions and ideas. We do offer, again, it's non-tax revenue money that has been set aside from grants that we get from other places when it comes back through. So like Explore Minnesota Tourism, you get an annual grant that we can spend on advertising. When it comes back, we set it aside to help new events get started.
Well, I mean, specific to baseball, they don't, I mean, they're here in the summer on the weekends. As I understand, the hotels don't have a problem filling rooms. They're not working with your organization to do room blocks. So they're kind of out in the wild. They might be staying at hotels, they might be staying in Little Falls, they might be staying at a resort in Crow Wing County, as an example, so.
Sure. We have been working with them more directly on the room blocks. It's not as easy as you'd think because we don't have a central booking system. There are, when you're in a larger market, they can run them through a visitor bureau, and we're not quite big enough for that. So what we have been doing is finding out, we communicate with the hotels and say, okay, here's how many rooms are available. Then we communicate with the association and put things out on their website. So it's something we have been trying to do. It's not perfect. You know, there are definitely visitor bureaus that do it better than we do. But it also is, we're trying to do what we can with what we've got. But if you have suggestions of events that you'd like to see or marketing strategies, we're open. That's what I opened up with, is we'd like to do more with the city specifically. I just need to know kind of what your thoughts are.
Well, I have suggestions with the lodging tax, not necessarily event specific.
Okay.
what's your interaction with the Chamber of Commerce?
We work together when it makes sense. We have tried many times over the years to find ways to make sense. When I started many years ago, I took a list of things to them, like could we do one visitor's guide? Could we do one website? Can we work together on events? And the answer was no. It always comes down to revenue and membership barriers. So we are a 501c6. We have one class of membership, which is the hotels. The reason that is in our bylaws is when we were established, we were advised to put that in there in case someone doesn't pay the tax, then we can take them out of the marketing. But we are not a membership organization, excuse me, in the same way that a chamber is. And so a chamber of commerce, the barriers with them is they need to represent any member. There are a lot of businesses who aren't members of a chamber that we do partner with and represent for free, since it's a tax. And so the conversations have always come back to, well, we can't do that because of ... And so the simplest answer is revenue and membership. We try to be open. We're generally open when they come to us with ideas. We offered help when they were wanting to pursue the regional tax and suggestions. I did sit on the State Convention and Visitors Bureau Board of Directors. I sit on a public policy committee, so I'm pretty familiar with lodging tax and the state statute and the different structures that are around the state. Our biggest challenge is going to be being a local tax inside of a regional destination, because these dollars are meant to be spent locally.
What dollars are you speaking to?
The lodging tax revenue is meant to be spent promoting. Our obligations really begin and end at the city limits of Brainerd and Baxter.
True, and I think it could also be argued that lodging taxes end at the city limits of Baxter and or
Sure.
Brainerd.
Sure, absolutely.
It looks like in your 2022 taxes, your net fund balance is about just shy of $750,000. Does that sound about right? 650-ish?
Yeah, we're right around 600. A big part of that was we received a PPP loan, and so that is now sitting in a reserve fund. In part, we have been trying to decide what to do with it from an infrastructure perspective. And since it's non-tax revenue, it's sitting there in case there is a big ask or something that makes sense. Again, those are the conversations we'd love to have with, and I've hinted at them with both Brad and Daryl over the years of what can we do? How do we make sure that we've got the infrastructure we need here for groups, events, convention center, another sheet of ice, another whatever, soccer field, who knows? But
Do you have a separate balance sheet for the EDA work you do?
I do. Well, no, it's a line item in our overall budget, but we can certainly pull it out. We do have a contract with the city of, well, not the city of Brainerd, but the Brainerd EDA. The vast majority of that contract is spent on advertising. I think my gross non-tax revenue fee for the year is about $2,000. So it does show that it was like a $28,000 contract. The vast majority of that is going right back to Hubbard Radio, Brainerd Dispatch to buy ads. But yeah, I can pull that out if you'd like.
That's buying ads locally for the
Yeah.
EDA, separate from
Yes.
advertising for lodging?
Yep, it's entirely separate contract. There is a scope of services, a written agreement, and I've got all the receipts for everything that we've done for auditing purposes or whatever we might need. And that was an ask that they made. I actually reached out during COVID to both the city of Brainerd and Baxter and said, this is a weird time. If you want any help with crisis communication, you need any help with anything else, please let me know. At the time, there wasn't a need here. Brad and the former city administrator and I talked about a relocation campaign at one time. There wasn't a need at the time, but that sparked the conversation with the city of Brainerd to say, hey, since you're the marketing expert, can we pay you to do this separate contract? But it's all separate. And it doesn't take much in the way of my resources once
advertising alone. Last year was 170-ish thousand, does that sound about right, somewhere in there?
I think that's short. Part of it is when we categorize things under website, it doesn't necessarily show up as advertising, but in our world, those expenses would be allocated towards it. Based on our profit and loss, it would be $260,000. So,
And you get any type of, do you have any data on if the advertising is working? I'm talking about a lot, not the lodging tax, bringing visitors into the area through that advertising.
sure. Sometimes it's hard to tell directly, but since, I'd love to be able to claim the increase in lodging tax revenue as a result of our advertising. Our key performance indicators are the increase that we see in website search traffic, website visitors, social media. It's not exactly a perfect science, unfortunately, to be able to say, yes, that television commercial brought somebody into the area. But showing that we're seeing an increase in lodging tax and the strategy specifically of the shoulder seasons, that's where we're seeing lift. I believe that our strategies are working. So we can certainly pay a company to come in and analyze all of the digital data that we have. There are organizations that do that. I've never thought that it was worth the $50,000 to $70,000 bill to do it, since we're seeing the increases in the taxes and the increases in the website traffic and the increase in the social media impressions.
Do you ever get any feedback from the hotels as far as, sometimes I know on reservations, you get the option to say where you saw us or where you found us?
Not specifically, no, I'm sorry, we don't. And I think part of it too is that, booking has changed, right? People call a day before. Sometimes they are booking through a search engine or an OTA, specifically. And so I think, we see the strategies working for events. We see the strategies increasing for, tournaments where we're seeing more heads and beds from that perspective. But I could certainly ask, more specifically and survey if that's a concern.
That might be an inexpensive way for you to get some feedback.
Sure. Yeah, and Katie Gunner is our board chair. She represents 3 of the properties here in Baxter, and so if you have any questions, you can certainly, she's here tonight too to be available, and so if there's any additional questions or concerns, you can sure ask her as well. But I'm open. There's no claim that this is a perfect operation. That's why I think that, the more questions you have, I'm pretty darn transparent. And I'm open to suggestions and change. Like I've said, I'd love to do more and know what is meaningful for Baxter. But since you foot the bill for the lion's share, there's no doubt that a rising tide lifts all boats. And there's no question in my mind that the money that we have invested in advertising across the region has also helped the resorts and the people that don't pay the tax. But I think that that's good for the region as a whole, and you continue to see development. But I will tell you that I very intentionally have been bringing that net and that focus in because we are, this community, the center of the economic region. And it can't just all be the resorts and the lakes. They're assets, but we have a story to tell. That's different than what has been told for a long, long time. So. But, no, go ahead. I was gonna say, but if, please don't hesitate to call, stop in, brainstorm. Jeff, we've known each other just a little bit through hockey world and all that. I would love to have a cup of coffee with anybody that wants to. That's my favorite thing. That's the hardest thing about being a solo show is you don't have somebody to brainstorm with or get the ideas from. My board is great and supportive, but or anybody in the audience for that matter. If you have ideas, let me know. We're trying our very best to be good stewards of those tax dollars. And know that it could go away, and it could go somewhere else, and there are lots of things you could do with it. There are communities all across the country that are trying to find ways to divert those funds. But I think it's pretty important for our community, being in a tourism economy, that we continue to advertise and promote.
And just to be clear, when you say tax funds, you're talking about the 3% tax on the bill.
Yes,
People
this is
staying
it's
in
a
the-
user fee, right? It's a lodging tax. It's not something that's
Neither,
coming from the cities.
you receive no support from either of the cities as far as taxes go.
I do not. No, we don't get any tax money. The only additional,
You need
Income.
support from our property tax revenue.
correct.
Tax dollars from the cities.
Well,
The
yes
money.
and no. Technically, it is tax dollars, city tax dollars.
No,
It is not.
It's,
It's not a city tax.
it's not.
Okay,
It's,
Okay, but it's generated from people staying in a hotel.
Yep, that's correct.
It's not coming from our property.
That's what I just said. Yes.
yeah, it's not a property tax. It's not levy dollars. It's coming directly from the people who stay through the hotels to the city, who takes 5% for administering the tax, and then 95% comes back to us. And there is a long list, if you are curious about how that money can be spent, in state statute 469.190, and it's codified under economic development. So I can't spend the tax dollars on a welcome to Baxter sign, not allowed. I can't spend that money on, give me something, I don't know, even sponsoring or starting a convention center or a park or a baseball field, not allowed. And so part of the strategy for us as a board of starting Visit Brainerd's Gift Store and Information Center was that the hope was we'd break even and we'd raise the visibility of the organization in the community and be a resource for people who are coming, but potentially to generate non-tax revenue that can go and sit and be used for something that is not defined in 469.190. So.
Any other council questions? Anybody in the audience want to ask while she's here? Everything you want to know about Visit Brainerd?
And then some, so, but
Thank you.
yes, I appreciate the time, we appreciate the support and the interest, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns. We want to do right by the communities we represent, so. All right, Gary, thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along, we look at public comments. Brad, if you have any comments written or called?
We received no written comments.
Anybody here like to address us on anything that's not on the agenda? We would entertain those comments at this point in time.
Mr. Mayor, city councilors, staff and citizens, John Ward, 11442 Forest View Drive, Baxter, Minnesota. So this isn't on the agenda. I want to talk tonight about two different things, but this one isn't on the agenda. I wanted to give you an update of the Forest View Road project from a resident's point of view. And Councilor Cabot can also weigh in here as well, but we've had some internet downtimes and noise and dust and dirt and mailboxes moved and houses shaking and all the stuff that happened on the other end of the Forest View project. But I do want to give a shout out to Neil from SEH, to Shane, not sure where Shane is from. Shane is SEH2,
Correct.
and Matt from RL Larson, and Trevor Thompson and Trevor Walters, both, they've really done a remarkable job in communicating with us, letting us know what's going on. The newsletters on Friday, the updates on Friday, they're valuable, they're important to all of us. I did have one question about, the mailboxes got moved the other day from our area. We didn't know that was happening, but that's okay. I did get a message yesterday that I had a package delivered to my mailbox, and when I went there, it was gone. So do we know how to chase that down, track it down, or anything like that?
Trevor,
not anyone's listening, it's not getting here, look into it.
I'll have to look into it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it's going well, in my opinion, and that those folks, those residents that lived on the Councilor Tabbitt, that lived on the other end and had it done already. I wish I'd been on the other end. But whatever. So, Mr. Mayor, councilors, I want to talk about the rezoning also, and I know that's in the agenda. Are you going to allow public comments during the rezoning discussion, or are there are going to be public comments?
Yeah, you can pull it off the agenda.
Excuse me?
You can pull it off the agenda when we get to those.
Mayor, it's not on the business.
Yeah, no, it has its own place on the agenda.
Yeah, it has its own
Yeah,
place.
it does, yeah.
So we can make public comments at that point? That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to hear good things. And we think we have good staff too, but it's nice to have it reinforced from the public too, so that's great. Anybody else, any public comments? Seeing none, we'll charge ahead then if you're following.
Before we jump into consent, we did skip the additions or changes to the
Okay.
agenda. And I just want to provide some points of clarification. The online version of the agenda has been updated to reflect the following. Item 5, which is the liquor license. Blazing Fire Foods LLC has been added to the list, and their approval is subject to successful background check, as we received that this afternoon. Item 13, which is the Utilities Commission minutes, the South Forest View discussion tonight. In the minutes, it has incorrect information regarding the zoning requirements of the district, and that's been revised to reflect the city code. Item 35, which is the adopt resolution for the public safety grant. The agenda did not have the resolution, that's now been added. Item 39, which is the assessment waiver agreement that's related to the proposed rezoning and plat. That agreement had the wrong county for recording purposes, it now reflects Crow Wing County. And then finally, the last one, item 25, had the wrong project number reference. The project of record is 4135.
Okay. These changes are noted. So, consent agenda, the following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. The item will be pulled and addressed immediately upon passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. Number 2, approve the city council work session minutes from May 7th, 2024. Number 3, approve city council minutes from May 7th, 2024. Number 4, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 5, approve the issuance of liquor licenses for the licensing period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Number 6, approve transfer of on-sale intoxicating and Sunday sales liquor license from USH Raider Ventures Arrowwood Lodge to YBR Properties Baxter LLC. Number 7, approve temporary liquor license for the Brainerd JC's special event at Mills Borders, Inc. Number 8, approve lawful gambling permit for Lakes Area Senior Activity Center to reflect lawful gambling in the Jack Mine category. Number 9, reschedule the Tuesday, August 6th, 2024 council meeting to Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, and the Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 Utilities Commission meeting to Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Number 10, schedule the annual stormwater public informational meeting for Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 7 o'clock or shortly thereafter. Number 11, approve amendments to the data practice policy. Number 12, adopt resolution 2024-048, approving the sale of lot 6, block 2, Cedar Scenic Second Edition, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documentation related to the sale. Number 13, accept the Utilities Commission minutes from May 8th, 2024. Number 14, approve the Sure Grace LLC Stormwater Facilities Maintenance Agreement with access rights and covenants. Number 15, approve services and as-bills. Number 16, approve the Quick Trip limited use agreement. Number 17, approve stormwater facilities maintenance agreement with access rights and covenants for Quick Trip. Number 18, approve the BNSF invoice number 902666369 in the amount of $19,909.55 for the 2022 Trunk Highway 210 and Inglewood Drive Improvements Project, municipal project number 4121. Number 19, approve the BNSF invoice number 902666709 in the amount of $130.10 for the 2020 Trunk Highway 210 and Inglewood Drive Improvement Project, municipal project number 4121. Number 20, approve the Anderson Brothers Construction change order number 5 in the increased amount of $52,983.27 rather for the 2023 commercial and residential full depth reclamation and quiet zone improvements project. Number 21, approve the Jet Line Sales and Service LLC contract in the amount of $1,757 for the 2023 commercial and residential full depth reclamation and quiet zone improvements project. Number 22, approve the R.L. Larson Excavating Inc. change order number 1 in the amount of $47,477.90 for the 2024 South Forestfield Improvements Project, municipal project number 4138. Number 23, approve R.L. Larson Excavating, Inc. partial pay estimate number 1 to the amount of $413,775.45 for the 2024 South Forestfield Area Improvements Project, municipal project number 4138. 24, approve the WITSEP proposal for construction administration services in the not to exceed amount of $487,800 for the 2024 Mill and Overlay and Full Depth Reclamation Improvements Project, municipal project number 4424. Number 25, approve the WITSEP contract amendment for professional engineering services in the not to exceed amount of $152,200 for the 2025 Design Road M371 Stormwater Improvements Project, municipal project number 4312. Number 26, approve the WITSEP fee amendment proposal for professional services in the not to exceed amount of $53,014 for the 2025 Mill and Overlay and Full Depth Reclamation Improvements Project, municipal project number 4425. 27, accept the CCS Contracting Inc. lump sum bid in the amount of $97,200 for lift station number 15 reconstruction project. Number 28, accept the May 14th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Number 29, adopt resolution 2024-051, approving the preliminary and final plat of Brandon Corner. Number 30, adopt resolution 2024-046 and 2024-047, approving the preliminary and final plat of Perk Place and conditional use permits for motor fuel sales and a drive-through car wash and a variance to the drive-through stacking standards. 31, approve Mike Miller's Roofing and Siding LLC contract agreement in the amount of $19,230 to replace and repair the roof of the restroom at Berrywood Park. Number 32, approve amendment number 2 to the Whiskey Creek Dry Powers agreement. Number 33, approve Brinks Wetland Services LLC to complete a wetland delineation in the amount of $3,500 for the Baxter Dog Park site on Clearwater Road. Number 34, adopt Title VI assurances and policy documents. Number 35, adopt resolution authorizing execution of agreement with Minnesota Department of Public Safety for a traffic safety grant.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Cross,
Second.
second by Alessio. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, under business number 36, adopt resolutions 2024-049 and 50, and ordinance 2024-011, approving the rezone from 1 to 1A.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. This is a request for rezoning and a preliminary and final plat. And then after this item are some other kind of subsequent applications related to this overall request. Just going to take a few minutes to go through a presentation on this application, as there were residents from the Planning Commission that, as part of the Planning Commission that came on this particular item. So specifically, this is a request for rezoning from R1 to R1A. It's titled Medium Density Single Family Residential, and a preliminary and final plat for Forest View Acres. It's for 25 single family lots along Forest View. And I'll go through the site in just a second here. It's 11.42 acre site. It's presently platted as one lot. So the developer and the applicant is requesting to establish the plat to create the 25 lots. In the R1A, the zoning district requires minimum lot size of 12,500 square feet for all lots and a minimum lot width of 80 feet for all lots. As part of the subject area, obviously as part of the street reconstruction utilities project, and so as part of this project, the property has now become available with utilities for subdivision at urban standards. So this is the subject site with the blue rectangle around the subject property, so you can see where it sits in relation to the to Forest View Drive on the right, or to the east and to the left. Is open space and trail property that the city acquired along the highway, and then Highway 371 to the west. Just want to take a minute to just kind of recap Planning Commission as best I can on one slide here. So the Planning Commission here was on May 14th. The Commission heard concerns from the neighbors about three main categories: assessments, mass grading, and tree clearing. The assessment question was specifically regarding if neighbors would receive a credit as the rezoning would allow essentially 5 additional single-family lots from the current zoning, which is R1. And that answer was provided at the meeting that there would be no credit provided back. One note that I would just add, while the question is a very fair and reasonable question to ask by the residents, it's just need to be clear that the assessment question really isn't a bearing or a factor related to the subject rezoning and plat request that and the standards that go along with those things. In terms of the concerns about mass grading and tree clearing, the discussion was focused on the middle to the south end of the property, where the developer had shown the site being cleared and mass graded to allow subject homes to be built on those specific lots. I'm going to go through a few documents on that and the tree clearing as well, as the applicant has submitted some revised plans since the Planning Commission hearing for the consideration here this evening. So this is the preliminary plat as it was submitted to the city originally. This is the preliminary plat the Planning Commission reviewed, and then this is the plat. I'm going to just switch the screen here in a minute. If you look, basically the north half is basically the same. In the south half, where you see these contours, these lines stacked up on each other, if you guys can all see my cursor in this area of the site, that's where the primary change is shown. It has occurred with the site. So when I switch back and forth, you can see how the grading limits on the property has shifted inward from the west to the east, pulling those proposed contours. Those dark lines represent where grading was going to occur, and with the revised plan where it would occur out of this revised plan. So basically pulling the grading away from that westerly lot line in that middle to south portion of the property. And this is just zoomed in so you can see a little bit more. We can go back to these slides if there's any specific questions, but again, the north half isn't changing much from what was originally submitted, in the south half is where you do see some revisions that occurred. I'm trying to address those questions of grading and tree clearing after what was heard by the neighbors. In addition to that, this is an exhibit that the applicant put together to, again, show in an exhibit form where they feel confident they could reduce the grading and save trees. The green represents the areas, and the applicant can speak to this if the council has any questions too, but the green is representing areas where there could be a lack of grading and trees to be saved in those green portions of each lot. So this is the north half, this is the north 13 lots, and And then on the next slide, I'll show the south half, going from lot 14 to 25. Obviously, there is still some clearing that is happening in that middle to south portion. Essentially what's happening with the site is that middle to south portion of the property has a lot more grade than the north portion, making it more challenging to create the buildable lots that the developer is seeking approval to build. So it's basically, from the preliminary plat that showed all of this being cleared to the plan here now shows the ability to preserve some of the backyard area of lots from pretty much lot 16 south to lot 25. This is the final plat that hasn't changed from the planning commission hearing. And then the builder has provided elevation drawings of the conceptual homes they are looking to build on the subject property, an elevation view, floor plan is also provided, as well as a color rendering of what the homes would look like. In terms of the rezoning to R1A, the city evaluated the rezoning application, looking at the purpose and intent of the R1 district, which is the existing zoning, as well as the proposed rezoning to R1A. They're both single-family zoning districts, the difference just being R1A is slightly smaller in minimum lot size and lot area. Looking at the subject zoning of the property, you can see that the area really on all sides of the property is in this yellow color. You can see this entire portion of the city, other than a couple of the areas that are city-owned, are zoned for R1. In looking at the proposed R1A zoning district and looking at density and lot size, the proposed R1A zoning would provide for a slightly more density than would be allowed with R1, but still within the density range for single family as outlined in the comprehensive plan. For single family in the comprehensive plan, it indicates maximum density of 3 units per acre. The proposed plat comes in at 2.2 units per acre. So it's within the 3 units per acre density range for single family. The R1 zoning could have 20 lots, whereas R1A can have 25. That's essentially the difference. The other difference that's noteworthy is the smallest lot width proposed with this plat is at the minimum for R1A, which is 80 foot wide. There are a number of 80 foot wide lots. However, the smallest lot area in the plat is 19,805 square feet, which is a larger lot area than the R1 minimum lot standard of 15,000 square feet. The property has frontage on Forest Drive, and for all of the lots, so they're all would have driveways fronting towards Forest View. To the back is, for the entire stretch of the plat, is city-owned open space. And then to the north, there's one adjacent lot actually abutting the edge, which is a vacant single-family property. The city did review the plat based on plat standards that are outlined in the city's subdivision regulations. I'll go through these quickly, but basically, in terms of the R1A, the developer is showing lots that would meet the minimum standards. Looking at the streets provide access to each lot. The city's subdivision regulations require frontage and access onto a public street, so all lots would have that, meets those requirements. In terms of easements and conveyances, there's a vacation, that's your next item on the agenda. That's to basically, if approved, the easements would be kind of basically wiped clean from the existing plat and we applied with the final plat, so it matches the lot arrangement. Wanted to show this table. This is the minimum lot area. Show this to the planning commission as well. This is from the plat drawings submitted by the applicant. It shows all the various lot area calculations or sizes, if you will, for all 25 lots. So you can see most of them are in that 19,000 to 20,000 square foot range, with a couple of them at 21,000. I think there's 3 lots on there that are 21,000 and some square feet. In terms of drainage, the 100-year stormwater design is able to be accommodated within the existing lot area. The city reviewed the drainage plan and finds it to be acceptable. The applicant would have to pay park dedication fees on a per lot basis at the time of recording the plat if approved. The Utilities Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning and preliminary final plat, and and they reviewed the application on May 9th, 2024. The Planning Commission made a motion for approval of the rezoning in the preliminary final plat. That motion to approve did fail with 2 votes in yes and 3 votes for no. No further motions were made that evening. Therefore, the Planning Commission does provide no formal recommendation regarding the application here this evening to the council. However, attached is the ordinance and resolutions for approval as was provided to the Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions that you have. I know the developer, their team is here, as well as I see neighbors from the Planning Commission that are also here this evening.
Okay, applicant, do you have anything you want to add at this point, or how'd you got, Tom?
Josh is a little hard to follow.
Okay. That's why it makes the big box up. Okay, Councilman, any questions of Josh? Or the applicant? Are you saying plans only people were here to speak or just to observe?
No, I'm just simply stating that I'm seeing neighbors that were here at the hearing that spoke. So,
I would assume this is the time for them to speak, if they want to speak.
Correct. That's why I was asking if you knew something we didn't know.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Amy Durkis, and I live at 6587 Riverwood Road in Baxter. I did speak at the Planning Commission meeting last week in opposition to this rezoning application. I understand that the owner has revised the proposal to address the concerns mentioned last week, and I applaud him for his efforts. It definitely is an improvement. However, it's still not the best proposal for this particular parcel. I do want to be clear that I am not opposed to this lot being developed. I don't have unrealistic expectations that it's going to stay in its natural state forever. And I welcome new neighbors and continued expansion of our community because that exhibits progress. I am concerned, however, with how the development is being proposed, and that's what I'm here to address. To begin, I do understand that this property owner is a developer. He wants to maximize the return on his investment. That's human nature. This is a business to him, and I don't fault him for that, and nobody should. I bought my home in hopes that it gained equity over time, so I can sell it for more than I paid for it, and that's an investment, just like this is. This applicant wants to do the same, and thus consulted with KLD and Mr. Kramer to draft a proposal to get the maximum amount of lots while gaining approval from the city and its residents. 25 lots in R1A rezoning was the result, because exceeding that 25 lot amount pushes you into medium density or multifamily high density, which probably has a very low probability of approval in this neighborhood. That certainly makes sense on paper. The proposal certainly does, but it's not in reality, and here's why. The owner is proposing a 25-unit patio home development on a parcel that doesn't support it, especially the lots 15 through 25, which exhibit a significant topography change currently. That's its natural state. It's not flat by any means. Although the owner is now proposing to save trees on the west 1/3 to 1/4 of each of those parcels in that southern portion, it is still planning to clear cut the remaining 2/3 to regrade the site and support a flat building path. And that's what's needed for a patio home. What isn't noted on the proposal, and it's something that should be considered in your analysis of this application, is how much grading will be done to achieve this. I did the math, and I did the math based on the revised plan. So let's look at lots 15 through 25, which have the most regrading required. Lots 15 through 22 require 26,358 cubic yards of fill brought into the site to create the flat areas for the new building sites. Lots 23 through 25 require 10,029 cubic yards of removal, because there it's a little bit higher. Assuming the owner chooses to use the removed dirt to offset the amount of fill, that still requires 16,330 cubic yards of import. to put this into a different standard, at roughly 12 cubic yards per truckload, that equates to 1,360 trucks of dirt. So that's a lot of dirt. According to Chapter 4, Section 10-4-8D of your city ordinance, under general landscape requirements for all zoning districts, it states that landowners are encouraged to preserve as much of their property in its natural native state as possible. And therein lies my issue with this proposal. I don't see how this is in keeping with your ordinance. These parcels therefore should remain R1. I do want to address a question you posed last week, Mr. Mayor, asking me what makes R1 better. Well, the answer is the more lot area you have to work with equals more opportunity to develop the parcel the way it should be, therefore working within the natural contours of the property. In other words, build a home to fit the property, don't change the property to fit the home. This style of development is in keeping with the neighborhood and the entire city of Baxter. It supports the premise upon which this community was founded, encouraging growth while maintaining the natural beauty of the area. Mary was up there just talking about that. That's why people move here. That's why you moved here, Mr. Mayor. You said you lived on a 50-foot lot in Brainerd, you moved to Baxter. Why? For more space, more rural feeling with urban amenities, and that's why I moved here. And I think that's the case for many of the people in this audience. I understand that working with the contours requires walkout or garden view home designs, which the owner may argue that will hinder their ability to reap a higher return on their investment, considering those types of homes are more expensive to build than a patio home. I would counter that and say those types of homes also offer a home buyer more amenities, and thus would support a higher resale value than a patio home, so reasonable return on investment still remains intact. I don't think anyone here would oppose to that approach in developing this parcel. Patio home developments are great. They certainly serve a need, and when they're well done, they provide a vast amenity to the community and community members. I don't oppose that type of housing at all. My mother lived in a patio home, and it was wonderful. It's just not suitable for this parcel. I can point out about a half dozen outlots within the city limits of Baxter whose natural topography would support this type of development beautifully. In fact, Northridge Investments, who is the applicant for this application, owns one of those outlots. When other opportunities exist within the city, R1A rezoning doesn't matter, or doesn't make sense for Forest View acres. But before I close, I want to address something else you mentioned last week, Mr. Mayor, regarding the missing middle housing bill that's currently under debate in the Minnesota legislature. Although not passed yet, I believe it's coming, and I anticipate passage of that bill or something very similar in the near future. As a result, proposals like this one won't even need city approval to commence, because it will be mandatory by Minnesota law to allow higher density in single-family neighborhoods. My question then is why? While the city still has controlling authority over the way in which their community is developed, why would you want to veer away from the original principles that have guided residential development in the city for decades? Soon you won't have that option for R1 zoning, so why not support it while you still can? So I strongly urge you to do so in this case and vote no for rezoning of this parcel. But with all of that said, if you still find it necessary to approve the proposal as written, I respectfully ask that you do so with conditions. And those conditions requiring the owner to preserve the natural topographic character of the lots and develop them accordingly with that in mind. And don't make this parcel something it's not meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say that everything you said there is true. You need to finish that story about my lot though. So I bought a 150-foot lot, and then when the assessments came through and the leaves came down, I got out of there. You know, I'm on a 102-foot lot, so it wasn't all it was cracked up. It sounded good at the time. John?
Mr. Mayor, City Council staff, and citizens. Where do I go from there? Amy, thank you. What Amy didn't tell you, that she told the planning, I wasn't at the planning and zoning meeting, but my wife was. I had other meetings going on.
Yeah.
But what Amy didn't tell you is that she's I think you're an architect
I am,
with,
with Northside.
Norson for a few years
24, yeah.
and have worked on these kind of projects over and over and over. So the wealth of information that she brings to this council and to the developer and to all of us is very, very valuable. And thank you for that, very much. I can't add much, but I would encourage all of my fellow neighbors to voice how they feel about this, even if you don't want to add anything or any questions. I do have a couple questions that Amy addressed and touched on. So let me start with that. First of all, I also want to say thank you to the Planning and Zoning Committee. They, as I understand, they took the time and listened to everybody and weighed out the options and weighed out the facts and weighed out what should be done and had my understanding is, a difficult meeting, but a meeting that resounded in a no vote. And if we don't listen to our committees and our commissions, why we have, although I've sat in those seats too, and I understand that you also have your options and your voices as well. So I get that. But I applaud the Planning and Zoning Committee for thoroughly thinking about and addressing the issues that Amy came up with. I also appreciate the fact that the developer has adjusted his initial request. One of the things that I know when Mr. Doty showed the aerial view, that aerial view is old. Old. If you go there now and take a new aerial view, and that was asked at the Planning and Zoning meeting, I believe, to not use that anymore, because it's more than, it's strict, and it's going to be more strict. And you know, I'm appreciative of the fact that the developer says he's going to save some green space in there, some barriers, some sound barriers, some whatever. That's great, but those properties don't look like what the aerial view that all of us saw up here originally. And so, and I also appreciate the fact that one of the planning commissioners actually went and looked at this property before he made his mind up. And I'm sure, I know that Councilman Cabot has been in that area, but I would encourage all of you, before you take a vote, to go and look at what's going on up there in that area. I also have a question about density. And my understanding from that meeting was that this is the first 1RA zoning in the city of Baxter. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
So my question is, why? Why is it now that we do this, and I think Amy also addressed that, why is it now a good thing to have R1A to allow more density? When we bought our house on, I forgot to give you my address, 11442 Forest Drive. When we bought our house, we moved there to have more privacy, less density. And now we're looking at putting, and I understand progress, I appreciate progress, and we're doing the Forest Drive project, and that is progress in protecting our environment. When we do a road, sewer, water project to protect our environment, and to have green space, and to make sure that the next generation is in a solid place environmentally, we need to do the same thing here. We need to do the same thing here. So even though I understand the value and the reason for creating more dense property, more homes being sold, but as Amy eloquently suggested, it's not 15 to 25 are not the proper lots to do that. So the other thing that I know that you said the assessment, Mr. Doty talked about the assessment, the road assessment, and that's not going back to the citizens on the Forest Drive project. I still think it should, and I wanted to make that comment publicly so it's on record. I also am concerned about, I've been involved in a number of developments here and in other places, and I hear often, we are going to have this green space. We're going to make sure that we have this green space. Then when it gets done, It's done, and there's less green space than what was projected. How are we going to monitor that? How are we going to say, wait a minute, developer, you're over the boundary here? Who's gonna monitor that? So that's concerning as well. I'm not saying that you're not going to do that, but I've seen too many projects that, in fact, it doesn't happen. And that's concerning. That's concerning. I also understand that some of these homes are going to be rentals. Do we know how many are going to be rentals? Is that in the proposal?
It's not in the proposal. You could ask the developer if they want to address it.
Do you know how many are rentals?
All of them.
They're all rentals?
That's the intention. Go ahead. I'll answer your questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we need to have affordable housing, Mr. Mayor. There's no question about it. I understand affordable housing not only in Brainerd and Baxter. And by the way, Visit Brainerd has a great store with lots of Warrior gear. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And affordable housing is a critical issue for all of us in this nation, not just here. So I get that. I understand it. I just want to make sure that everything's on the table and everything's accurate in what we're saying and doing. I think that I'll end with that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the developer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and citizens.
Thank you.
I would encourage any neighbors that are here to voice how you feel about this.
I'm Judith Anderson from 6501 Parkview Circle, so I would be just cut off on the bottom down there. I was at the meeting last week. I'm the one that asked about the rebate. But it's especially from this picture, I'd like to point out the fact that, or reiterate the fact that many of us bought properties in this neighborhood to have our neighbors not looking in our windows. We also like the habitat and the wildlife. I've appreciated this the whole time that I've lived there, although the wildlife, especially the bird population, seems to be being destroyed. So habitat destruction is on my mind here. If you cram 25 families in where only 20 would have been, that's a little bit more of an effect on our wildlife and birds. But now if we look at this picture, it just dawned on me as I was seated that the proposal, okay, backing up, going, the suggestion or the comments were made that we were only going from 100-foot frontage lots to 80. But in the past before, such as when I moved in, and I don't know until how recently, the frontages were wider than 100. I don't know if you guys remember, it was sticking in my head that it was 125 plus. So really, we're decreasing more than just 20%. We're decreasing as much as half compared to what it had been. But even so, if you look at this map on Mr. Wart's side of the street, you can see how much wider the frontages are. And Mr. Flaherty, the Flahertys aren't here tonight, they were here last week. You can see that the proposal on Mr. Ward's side of the street, for every 3 properties, there's going to be 4 or 5 properties on the opposition. So that's an imbalance that kind of looks terrible. So I'm shooting from the hip. I didn't prepare anything. I'm not an architect. I'm an ex-college professor in pharmacy and medicine. And that's a long time ago, and found out I make more money just being a pharmacist. Anyway, would also reiterate the fact that at planning and zoning, only one member of the commission had been to our neighborhood. I was so enthusiastic when finding out that he had really been down there, and he says he does his due diligence before any zoning change, any proposal. He visits every site. Keep him. We need people like him. And I would encourage you also, look at the site before you would approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Darren Durkis, 6587 Riverwood Road. My wife pretty much summed everything up, except for a couple comments that were made at the planning commission. I think if the clear cutting happens, the city really needs to think about some sort of sound barrier, either on that trail, really that trail to Mr. Ward's point, that future trail that is now cut in the woods there. There's going to be an impact to that. I mean, the reason why we're cutting trails through woods is for the peacefulness, you know. And now if you're going to back up and clear cut into there with the developments, that start of that trail isn't going to be what I don't think the city intended that trail to be through that area of the forest, you know, or the woods. Also, I'd like to make a comment, and certainly the developer can come up and speak to it, but we currently don't have block rentals in our development. And I don't see the reason for that in that development. That's not why the people in that development in Forest View Drive or Forest View Acres, why we moved there. We didn't move there to live in a development community that had rental units. Now, there might be some rental houses, you know, sporadically throughout there that are being, you know, kind of privately rented, but not as a business district. I mean, single family homes, 25 of them in a string is a business. That's not just, yeah, I'm renting my home to somebody because I'm not using it anymore. So I don't think the property's being used as its original intended purpose by any means as well. So I'd like you to consider those. Also, you know, to Amy's points, you know, bringing that much dirt across that road or that many trucks across that brand new road is gonna break that road down. And Trevor can talk to that, you know, obviously, but bringing that much truck traffic across that road, not that there's not gonna be some truck traffic across that road, you know, when the development happens at 20 lots. I'll be optimistic you're gonna vote no at 20 lots, but there should be less dirt movement, and hopefully working within the topography there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Rob Norgon, and I live next to John and Sally at 11472 Forest View. And my wife and I are not happy with this change. We don't think that higher density and rental property fits in that residential area. My lot is 150 feet on the front. I think it's like 500 feet long. The reason why we moved there is for privacy. And I think that with the type of project that's proposed, that's going to increase the traffic, and it's going to take away some of that privacy that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Jim Kramer. I'm representing the applicant in this land use map application change in subdivision. I'll try to address some of the issues that have been brought up. I know Josh covered this very well. First point I'd like to make, Planning Commission did not make a recommendation on this. So it was brought up that the Planning Commission made a recommendation for denial. They did not. They never came to any conclusion that they approved. Basically, a motion was made, it didn't pass, and it ended there. So I just wanted to clear that up. A couple questions went down density because we keep coming back to that question. This development, when you look at overall density, actually exceeds the R1 standard. When you look at overall size, this has bigger lots than your typical R1 development does. What this type of development does do is it's efficient use of space. It's more efficient in the way the homes are put in. It's efficient use of the infrastructure that's in place. This goes hand in hand with your assessment meetings, which you've been through many times. This parcel was created many years ago, obviously, along an existing dedicated right-of-way for this type of development. This is what's going in there. Now, whether in actuality for the, we talk about the clearing and the grading required for this development, whether this is an R1 or an R1A, it's the same impact, I guarantee it. There's going to be the same amount of grading, there's going to be the same amount of clearing. We're doing everything we can to try to maintain the existing forest that's out there. 12 of these lots are set up to have 80 feet of untouched wood behind these homes. When you look at your typical R1 lots anywhere in the city of Baxter, if it's a 100 by 150 foot lot, they don't have anywhere near that. Talk about dirt quantities. I respect Amy's numbers. I have a civil engineering department that will probably disagree with those numbers. It's around 8,000 yards of total excavation on the site.
Slow down just a little bit, I'm not understanding everything you're saying, so, okay.
There's about 8,000 yards of total excavation on that site on lots 16 through 25. Part of it is there, so basically we're just moving it from one area to another. So the truck count that was earlier brought up is not accurate. There's an amount of fill that has to be brought in, there's no question. I wouldn't say it's a challenging area, but it needs some work, and it's set up to be developed, and that's what we're proposing to do under the ordinance and comprehensive plan that exists. I'm sure there might be other questions that I could maybe clarify, but I would be happy to take questions from you.
Council, any questions of Bill?
All the houses are basically the same.
That's the plan right now. The plan right now is to start development from the north and work south. Obviously, this isn't going to be developed over a one-year span. As markets change, finances change, house floor plans may change. We may get down to the south end, which would be the latter part of this development. It may make sense to do a two-level structure at that point in time. I'd just like to bring up, even if we do a two-level structure, it's going to have minimal changes from the amount of grading we're showing and clearing. There's still, you can limit it a little bit, but you still have to go in there and get the site ready.
And how many bedrooms are these? I didn't get the plan in my packet.
3.
3 bedrooms?
Yes.
And the exteriors would vary because.
Color-wise, yes.
Architecturally, no.
Architecturally, it would be very similar.
When Amy brought up that there's another parcel in the city owned by your company, is that something that?
We are in the process of developing that parcel as well. Mr. Doty could probably attest to how long we've been working on that with the city.
Okay.
You'll be seeing it at some point in time, but we're just not there yet.
Will you be having a resident manager?
No.
Okay.
And I think I have to ask the owner how he is looking at doing this, but, the rental question kind of brings up the topic of whether it's germane to the application. Anyone can buy a house in Baxter and rent it. It's very possible we may get to a point when we build these that they're sold. The initial intent is that they're going to be rentals.
So, working with a developer for 25 years who did a lot of rental properties, I can tell you that we saw a different rental property when there was a resident manager versus
And
a non-resident manager, so that's why it is permanent.
there wouldn't be a resident manager in that site there.
Okay.
That's not the plan. So they said that they don't know how that comes into the question of application.
Well, specifically, it comes into upkeep and
And it's really, there's, obviously, we have every intent to have A1 structures and A1 properties.
The they fall under an association?
No. That's kind of what you're asking.
No, I'm
On site.
yeah. It's all right, my question's answered. Good.
I maybe ask the germanity, I guess, the situation. Could this same application have been put out here with no description of any of the houses and no answer as to owner occupied or not?
Can I redirect that to Josh and let him answer?
Yeah, that, yep.
As the council knows, we have the architectural ordinance, which comes into play for basically all of our zoning districts except one use, which is single-family homes. The city has not ventured into architectural controls with single-family. So, provided that the homes meet state building codes, fire codes, and meets all our codes and other ordinances for things like setback, things like that, we don't control the architecture on single-family across the city.
That wasn't the question.
Okay, could you?
I guess to further clarify, I'm just concerned that we may be getting ahead of ourselves in terms of process and procedure, and it may not be relevant to the specifics of
I
how
think
these
your
problems
question
are
was,
managed.
Yeah, okay.
could this application have been made without the plan commission or us knowing that they were all owned by one company and rented? Or what the house looked like?
Yes. In other words, could someone have just said, I just bought this property and I'd like it rezoned to R1A, and I'm not gonna do anything yet? I will.
Yeah, it's a good question. I see where you're going now. The rezoning application could always be asked without a plat. Obviously, you need the plat to create the lots. We would encourage someone in that situation to come forward with the project that they want, and we would push hard. I think Mr. Kramer can attest to the fact that we've pushed hard on that exact question back when folks have tried to just rezone property, because that puts the city in a situation where we're asking to provide a new zoning district without knowing the end product. So as a staff, we ask the developer to provide a concept for the homes that they're intending to build, because a lot of concern can come with unanswered questions. So, but could they make that application to rezone the property and have it be one lot that's R1A? They could make that application, and the city would not be able to stop the request. But when you do plat property, that's when it does enter discussion on some of the slides I had, which is like stormwater and access and some of the subdivision standards.
That still doesn't answer your question, or does?
Just in what you said, if I can clarify, you said it doesn't stop the application. You mean it doesn't stop the applicant from making the application?
Exactly.
It doesn't change the fact whether it can be voted yes or no.
Absolutely, you're correct.
Which subdivisions are different.
Yes.
If they meet all the requirements, subdivision basically has to be voted yes.
Yes.
Okay, so, just so everyone's clear on the process here.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an all or nothing.
Yeah, the city has more discretion with the rezoning than they do with the plat. The plat is based on very specific standards that are in our subdivision regs, yes.
Did I hear you say that there's a possibility that some of the homes may turn into homes that are privately owned?
Absolutely. I think today there's a plan, but obviously even if plans go according to timeframes, you're probably looking at a 5 or 6 year build out for this development. And if it's at time a renter is wishing to purchase, or if it just makes more sense to sell the structures rather than rent them, obviously that will be done.
Is there a purchase price on one of these homes right now?
That I can't say, because I don't know.
Well, is the applicant here, or the
Yes.
owner here that could answer that?
Tom, you want to comment on that, or don't know?
There's no price, no.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
So, is this okay that I came up again?
Sure.
Because I did have some questions for Mr. Kramer after he presented, talked about some things there. Mr. Kramer, you said that, what I heard you say was this is an efficient use of the infrastructure out there. But I think it was pointed out that the new roads will be used more heavily than if they weren't, if we didn't have tons and tons of dirt being moved. And I also would like to know why there is such a difference of what an architect of 25 years experience has said about the cubic yards of dirt versus what you're saying. Why is there such a difference?
Is that your last question?
No, it's not my last question. No, absolutely not.
I can't define the difference in numbers, but I'm happy to.
Well, then how can you say that?
No, I can give you surface models tomorrow. I have a civil engineering department that does this every day. We can provide you right to the yard.
Okay, that would be great.
We can do that.
You also said that, what I heard you say was that it doesn't make any difference if it's R1 or R1A, either is fine. That's what I heard you say.
No, that's not.
What did you say then?
Mind if I speak back here, Mr. Mayor?
Probably why we get on the record here.
When I was speaking to the development versus an R1 versus an R1A, the impact of material or tree clearing is going to be very, very similar. An R1 development, as an example, we could come in with 20 lots. It would look exactly like that. There would be 5 less lots. I guarantee you we would make 25 or 20 lots that are 100 feet wide. The houses would be wider. The extent of grading would be identical. And to answer your question about the efficient use of infrastructure, and you guys in this neighborhood understand this, at some point in time, the city's coming through again with assessments again. And it's like, the wide lots are spectacular until they get to the day when you have to do infrastructure upgrades or installs. It's a tough one to swallow for landowners. I know you're in that neighborhood, you
You
understand.
don't have to tell me that.
I live in Baxter too, so I understand.
Okay, all right. So I appreciate your explanation. So you're okay with R1 then?
No, we're asking for our
You
money.
don't- I heard you say that, okay. My point is, what you're saying is, whether it's R1 or R1A, it doesn't, we're gonna do the same clear cutting, we're gonna do the same this, we're gonna do the same that. So you're okay if it's R1,
We're asking for an R1A zone district.
okay? You're not okay with R1? You want 25 rather than 20?
We're asking for R1A.
You said that it's gonna be a 5 to 6 year plan? Correct, I heard you say that, 5 to 6 year plan, starting at the north and going south? So, and I also heard you say that the plan may change, the homes may change. What's the process for getting change back to the council? What's the process gonna be for him changing his proposal now, or the owner changing their proposal now, and then coming back 3 years to the city council, the mayor, city council staff? What's that process gonna be like?
As long as they remain single-family homes, there'd be no change. As long as they submit a plan.
Okay, so as long as they stay, go ahead.
For building permit. And there's nothing in this that says they have to build that house.
Okay, all right. So they can make changes as long as it's a residential home, whatever, to whatever. Is that right?
That's the way I understand it.
Is that right,
Josh, may I
Josh?
wanna-
Yes.
Okay, all right.
They can change the rate at which they develop, there's nothing to control that. Once it's platted, there are R1A lots, if approved, there'd be 25 of them. They could pull building permits as fast or slow as the market allowed them to do, or when they chose to do that. We said at the planning commission was that the intent is to do groupings of them at a time. I think 5 to 6 was on the record at planning commission, 5 or 6 at a time, is what I recall hearing.
Okay.
So John, you might be confused with maybe a planned unit development where they actually come to us with a plan of exactly what they're gonna build.
Yep.
And if they change it, they gotta come back and change it.
So in other words, the height of the house can change, The width of the house can change, the depth of the house can change, as long as it's resident, as long as it's single residential. And so we have no, the other residents of that area, we are kind of stuck with it then, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are things that we check with every building permit for a single family home, but it's limited. There's setbacks, building height, we have building height requirements, setback requirements, there's requirements on how big garages can be, how big sheds can be,
Yeah.
where they can put placed. So to say we don't have any rules is not accurate either, but it's not that we control design.
Okay, I didn't say that we didn't have any rules, I just.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah. The other, I think my last comment will be that, at the planning and zoning meeting, it was stated that there will be some rentals. And tonight it was stated they'll all be rentals. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. Why the change from, when you were questioned at the planning and zoning, there will be some rentals versus they're all gonna be rentals.
I believe the comments of the planning commission were that they were all going to be rentals, but we had the same discussion about the possible sale of units.
No.
And-
That's what was said just now, correct? That some may be sold
Correct.
and individually owned.
Correct.
So at the planning and zoning committee, the statement was, some of these will be rentals, rather than all of them will be rentals. That's, I mean, there are people here that heard that
Yeah,
same statement.
I'm not questioning that, but I just want to clarify that I heard tonight it could be both.
I think the intent was, we made clear at the planning commission meeting that the original intent was that these are to be rentals. But obviously that may change over time, and they may be sold. So we may have some rentals, some ownership.
Yeah,
It's hard for us to commit. You know, this is where this planning process and subdivision, we're trying to give you all our information of our plans. But to try to give you plans 3 and 4 years out, it's just an impossibility.
and if you said you live in Baxter, and all these, everybody, I'm assuming lives in Baxter, and as your neighborhoods change, and your neighborhoods change, and your neighborhoods change, I'm assuming that you're going to try to make sure that the change is okay. The change is okay. And if you feel that it's not okay, then you're gonna voice your opinion. And that's what some of us are here doing tonight. And I, for one, and I heard others say, appreciate the fact that you've made some adjustments on your original plan. But that's why we're here tonight. We're here to protect our neighborhoods of when we bought, as Mrs. Anderson said, and the Dirks have said, and others have said, the Norgons have said. So I just want to end with that. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
I just want to make one more comment. Sorry. And it's just in response to Mr. Kramer's comment about if these were the larger lots. I don't disagree, you could certainly build a home on a larger lot. You can build a large home on a very small lot, because I've done it. So I will, though, disagree with the grading being the same. Because if you do the larger lots, unless you are going to develop it to the point where you're doing it in 5 or 6 lots at a time, you know, the intent of this neighborhood was there were lots there, they're sold, that individual property owner purchases that, makes a plan for their home, builds their home. So it's more as an individual piece. When it's looked at in that manner, you wouldn't be mass grading to this degree. You are going to look at those lots. I did it. I looked right at this parcel and I laid out that exact footprint on one of those lots, even left it at 80 feet. You can get those homes to fit on that lot, working with the contours. What is required is it can't be a patio home. That's the problem. So if they want to do these patio home developments here, he's got to flatten the lot. I get it. That's the only way to do a patio home. Can't do it on a lot that has a 10-foot topography change. Mark can attest to that, I'm sure.
Oh, retaining walls.
Well, sure, retaining walls. But the best way to be the best steward of that parcel, which is really, like I said, was how the whole city of Baxter and the premise of the residential development in the city of Baxter was to work within the contours that are available to you. If you have, people like kill for a walk outside. I mean, I have homeowners that come to the flat sites and beg for it to have a walkout ability. These scream to put homes on that are walkout or garden view. And if they were a little bit larger lots, even if you kept it at the zoning that it is with the 80-foot lot, these lots can be developed differently, being much better stewards of the property. That's my concern. I think that's some others' concerns. Not that this is going to be developed. Develop it, absolutely. Bring in more families, more people into the community. I'm all for that. We're just asking that you do it in a manner that makes sense with the parcel you're working with. Certainly, if it's flat, go ahead and put a patio home in. This parcel is not. And that's the whole point that we're trying to get at, is just, if you're going to develop, do it in the best interest of the property and the people who are going to live there. That's all we're asking.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
Yeah, I just scanned back through the planning minutes from the last meeting. And Director Doty did note that the homes would be rental properties, but that should have no legal bearing on the requested applications. So it is in the minutes. I wasn't there, so just FYI. And I do have some comments if this is the time, if everyone else is done.
Got one more here from you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll make it easy. Vote no.
Okay, Mark.
Okay, I just wrote down some notes and, the patio versus a non-patio home. I've been through pretty much every street there, and I can't remember seeing a patio home in Forestfield. Typically, when I think patio homes, I'm thinking retirement homes. The rentals versus ownership, I missed that part when I was reading through this earlier. I didn't catch it until tonight. 25 rentals, 20 rentals, 25 rentals, and a single family neighborhood changes the character of the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the existing neighborhood. And a 3-bedroom floor plan, you know, that's fine. I think they're kind of missing out on the whole basement, but that's what they want to build. Mr. Kramer made a comment about density, and just so everybody understands and heard that, this will, right now our minimum density in R1 is, Josh, 15,000, and every one of these are bigger than the minimum density in R1. The width isn't, but the overall size of a lot, because they're so deep. We get a lot of that in Baxter. I'm not really in favor of this R1A. I don't think it fits with the existing character of the neighborhood, especially when we factor in what we know what's going to be a patio and a rental. And I think it will tend to be a detriment to the existing neighborhood and possibly the values. And that's just what I potentially see from it. So that's
Just
my comment.
a couple of comments from me. 6 years ago, or when I became a city council representative, one of my beliefs was we needed to increase the affordable housing in Baxter, and I still believe that so strongly. And what I'm hearing from most of you is, yeah, we need to do that, as long as it's not by me. And that statement, and I'm just paraphrasing, but I struggle with that too, you know, as a person. But then I think, well, that's not right of me to feel that way. So it's just, I'm personally struggling with the decision right now, but I don't like the fact that, yeah, it's great for somebody else as long as it doesn't impact me.
Do these fall under the affordable? I didn't know that in the.
Well, I'm sorry, less expensive perhaps. A young couple may be able to afford to rent there. I'm not, sorry, I misspoke.
Okay, I just want to make sure that mortgage.
I've been both with you.
Right.
You have, so,
Like, I might have to say a few more things, because I just look at this more from like a rules-based perspective, and I guess maybe a couple of, I don't know if it makes any sense, but a couple of questions to ask Mr. Doty in that I'm looking at this as purely from, should it be rezoned, on more of a, what's the character aside from what the individual owner might choose to do and choose to do 5 years from now, in that we're looking at lots that are bigger than the minimum in R1A. We're at 2.2 units per acre, so we're not talking about actual medium density. We're not actually getting denser than R1. And then I run into a couple of concerns about legally putting in our findings that rental properties are or are not there. I can't put that in there in my mind. That along those same lines, I don't see how, and maybe Mr. Doty can help me answer the question. By rezoning, are we inherently allowing grading or disallowing grading? Are we inherently allowing or disallowing tree removal? And are we inherently allowing or disallowing any particular style or type of house to be built? And do we really have the legal authority to say those things on a rezoning application? Because we're not here to talk about rental licenses or grading permits.
Yeah, my take on that is the answer is no to all three of those. The fact of the matter is that anyone that buys a single family lot can choose to take down all the trees that they want. The landscape ordinance that was referenced earlier says encourage. So, I mean, it's really up to every landowner that builds a house. We don't have a rule in the ordinance that says you can only take 1 tree, 2 trees, 10 trees. And the grading, there's a lot of arguments on what tendencies of what might be done based on lot size. Those are all different. All I'm just saying is that based on the rules, anyone that buys a lot, whether there's 1 lot or 25, they have choice to decide how many trees they're going to take down for that given house, regardless of how big or small it is, and decide how much grading they choose to or not to do. We have very basic standards on grading that relate towards not impacting drainage onto a neighboring property. So they have to follow specific laws to not impact other people with drainage. But from a law perspective and what we have in our code, we don't have regulatory authority on a per lot basis regarding those things specifically. Hopefully that answers the question.
I have a question for Josh. So how many lots owned by a single person developed at the same time constitutes a development versus a single family?
Yeah, I mean,
And granted, I've seen people come in and regrade the entire subdivision and put in the roads and do all that. This is basically taking an output, creating 25 homes and building them in some phased fashion.
yeah.
It's not one single family home at a time necessarily.
Right, it's a difference. I mean, the difference between 1 lot and anything more than 1 lot is a subdivision, right? In order to make 1 into 2 or 1 into 20 or 1 into 25, that requires a plat. And the subdivision regulations do have general requirements that we ask the developer to do with what they did, which is provide a grading plan so that we know what we're getting and we can look at those general drainage requirements, make sure stormwater has been able to be handled on the subject property without impacting neighbors, that kind of thing. So I would say any subdivision requires, per our subdivisions, if you want to call that a development then our subdivision requirements do ask for certain types of information on those plans, such as a grading plan, utility require a lot of that same thing with a single-family home. We have to make sure even on a one-lot, per lot basis, that they aren't impacting drainage to a neighboring property and that there's adequate street frontage and, you know, they're meeting all the requirements for utilities, et cetera.
I've got a couple of probably technical questions here. I'm looking at, the city attorney couldn't be here tonight, but she provided us with an opinion, and I wish she could have been here. But so we kind of embraced the 1A here a few years ago. And to your question, John, nobody's come before. So why now? Why now? It's because we haven't seen the request until right now. So we're all in kind of uncharted territory here. But in her opinion, there's a couple of comments here that I just want to share. I tell the staff at least twice a year that one of their big jobs is to protect me from myself, and so I don't want to endanger the city, and so I'm just looking for some clarification here. But it said the council should also consider whether this is a rezoning statement, whether rezoning and proposed use of the property meets city ordinances. If the proposed use meets all other city zoning ordinance requirements, setbacks, minimum lot size, etc., that makes it harder to find a rational basis to deny the zoning, the rezoning application. I don't know how that fits in here, Brad, but that causes me some pause. And then when I get down to the plat approval, it says the procedure for plat approval and review is outlined in yada, yada, yada. If the applicant has complied with all the conditions and requirements imposed by the city shall certify final approval of the plat. Because the statute uses the word shall, there's very little discretion given to the city to deny a final plat. So I'm looking for some help in how do those two statements fit in today, or do they not? Or anybody?
Josh, do you want to fill in?
Yeah, I guess I would, you know, who might disagree with the city attorney. No, I agree with that. And I do think the rezoning provides you with more discretion, absolutely, than the plat. Very difficult to deny a plat if it's shown to meet the standards. Our review is that their plat meets the city standards. Okay, so I'll put that out there. I don't have any findings for any standards they have not met with assuming the R1A zoning. So it really goes back to the zoning where you have some discretion there. But I think what the city attorney is trying to state is that to deny something, you have to come up with established findings and standards that are part of the record that are very clear as to why when you're going from one single family zone to another. So yeah, I think if you were to go down that path, you would need to spend some time establishing very clear findings as to why you're not supporting that rezoning.
Yeah, their attorneys, another paragraph right before you get to the plat approval. Lastly, if rezoning would be detrimental to neighboring property development, harmful to local environment, public health, safety, morals, or general welfare, those are factors to be considered by the council in approving or denying the application.
Yeah, I read that. Those are pretty speculative things, I thought. So I don't know.
Those are hard things to put a value on, because they're,
Subjective.
they are.
Go ahead.
One question, you spoke about the state law that did not go through legislation last week, right, when you spoke. And my expert here, I think, is trying to reduce the amount of comments he's making tonight, but this is right in his wheelhouse. It's my understanding that if that law would have passed, multifamily or high-density homes, we couldn't say no to. So it's possible that next year, that could be apartment complexes. Okay. I thought you said it the other way around, so just making clear that if that, I know it's not law, but if that law was passed at the next legislative session, it's not an R, it's not, it might not be an A1, or
Do I need to go up and address that again?
you can if you want. I mean, it's just conversational. I just wanted to make clear that,
Yep, no,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
everything that I've watched as far as that missing middle legislation is that if it does pass, you're right. The whole point of that legislation is to require cities to accept zoning options for high-density residential things like apartments, townhomes, duplexes, that type of thing, in neighborhoods like this. My point with that was that hasn't passed yet. At some point, it will be the law of the land that's coming. And to your point, I totally don't disagree with low-income housing and that, being a very important piece. And I hope it probably did come across, but it wasn't my intention for it to come across that don't put it in my neighborhood. It's going to come somewhere, and it definitely has a need, and that's great. I wasn't looking at the way he was developing, the developer is developing this property as it being low-income housing. I was looking at it strictly as what they're doing with the property to make it patio home development, which is two totally different things. So I wasn't referencing low-income housing, if to that point, but yes.
and my point would be if a developer says, you know what, at 20 homes, we can't do it, we can't make it possible. So we're gonna sit on it for 2 years.
Yep.
And then in 2 years, legislation is passed. All right, now it's time to build. What are we gonna build on this?
You're absolutely right, you're absolutely right. But to my point, and what I was trying to get at with that is, that hasn't become the law of the land yet, even though it probably will. And because it hasn't, you as a city council have the opportunity to consider those very subjective points that your city attorney brought forth in considering this rezoning application. That's all. You still have the authority to do that, is my point.
Right.
At some point.
I heard it anyway.
Auditor's money.
And I don't know if it, sorry, Mayor. I just had a conversation with a realtor this morning about, as some of the council members know, I think we need more multifamily homes, patio homes. I've had neighbors in my neighborhood have to move out of town because they can't get up and down their stairs anymore, and there's nothing in the area here for them. So, and his parents live in that little patio development down over by Buffalo Hills. They often sell before they even hit the market. So there's a need for patio homes. Everybody loves a walkout basement, but I think the area needs patio, or small homes, townhomes, patio homes. That's just my opinion on that. But
I agree.
Yes, personally, I don't know if there's more. I personally can't see a finding that I can make that would allow me to disagree with this rezoning, so I'm gonna move for approval.
Second. We're at 36 there.
Yep, that's 36, resolutions 2024-049 and 050, and ordinance 011.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 37, vacate all drainage and utility easements dedicated on Lot 1, Block 3, Forestfield Drive. Public hearing, open hearing, 1955. Anybody here to address that?
Yeah.
None.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just mentioning this is related to the lobby discharge, it's requesting to open the hearing to take this. We're going to consider to establish a plat.
Okay. Close the hearing at 8:55:30. Motion to adopt the resolution.
So,
Second.
thank you.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 38, vacate all drainage and utility easements, College Pines.
This is for their office park application that's on your consent agenda. Again,
subdivision plan rezoning. Attaches the assessment waiver agreement related to that to establish the 25 assessments.
Move to adopt that resolution.
Motion by Talbot,
Second.
second Leslie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think we made it there. Connie, comments?
With graduation season upon us, just congratulations to all who may have graduates or help them get to that place in their lives. And there will be a lot of gatherings, I'm sure, in the city and just increased traffic and celebrating, so it's everywhere.
Mr. Talbot?
No comment tonight.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes, sir, I'll be quick. I actually yielded most of my time to Josh Doty tonight for his presentation, so I only have a minute left. Real quick, hey, thanks for the works, it wasn't a work session, retreat we did. I think there was a lot more to discuss that we didn't get a chance to, so I don't know if we can maybe just think about rolling in some work sessions to keep some of that stuff on the front burner. I wish we would have, I think there's some good successes on here. We didn't speak too much, which was fine, but I like the work plan items. I kind of wish the council would have maybe, I felt like we didn't really, I don't want to say prioritize them, but if we were asked for our priorities, we would go down those lists. Did we, the staff or council feel like we did a good job prioritizing the items that your staff came up with on the work plan? That's what I would ask. I didn't sense it, maybe it happened, or maybe you didn't want, maybe that wasn't the intent of the.
No, the intent, and I think we accomplished it. Yeah, obviously the areas are the items in red, specifically say that there's either it's been council approved or that they have external or internal factors that require city representation, that it's going to take up staff time. In that regard, the items that weren't colored black were things that we were going to work on when time does allow. It's on our radar as things that we're going to accomplish. There were a few things in which were brought up that have been on the radar that we have yet to. Tomorrow is our leadership team meeting, which we'll talk about it in the context, trying to figure out the scope and timeline in which we bring that up for work sessions and things like that.
Good. Yeah, that's all I was hoping for, is that we have kind of a roadmap for primarily the work sessions, and keeping that City Hall Community Center on the front burner. Sorry, Mayor. I'm not. A few more comments.
Okay, Mark?
I'm good tonight.
Okay. I would just say that to you back there that are involved, you've been to all these meetings now, so you know the feelings of people. And I would just say to work as much as you can possibly with those comments. And
That's our intent. That's our intent.
ease the pain.
And I know it's difficult, change is difficult, and I know they understand that, but
These are tough ones. It's tough.
if I could get one clarification, the motion that was made, was it for the rezone or preliminary plat and final plat?
It was a motion to approve, so I'm calling that everything.
Perfect. These are tough decisions, stuff for this group right here too, so you just honor that as much as possible as we move forward. Okay, that's all I've got. Brad?
Just one item, Your Honor, just a reminder that there is a special utilities commission meeting tomorrow at 5:30 in this room, is to get an update on the well rehab and the studies that are being done regarding our wells. So
Thursday night.
tomorrow night.
What time is that?
And Thursday.
Well, Thursday night is the project kickoff meeting for the 2024 mill and overlay and FDR project. It's an invitation for the residents and businesses to meet the construction crew, the site inspector, things of that nature. In that context, it doesn't require council attendance, but you are welcome to it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, I guess.
Move to adjourn.
Favor?
see how fast I went through my phone?
Oh, yeah. See, they're sticking out for